Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game, it's Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. Brought to you by Alpha. Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game, it's Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. Brought to you by Alpha.
Happy game day, everybody, and welcome in to the first edition of Crimson Tide Kickoff for 2019, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm glad you're joining us today. We're live here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, side of this afternoon's game between Alabama and Duke. And, of course, we will be back in the studio as well in just a little bit with Zach Tigert, who's manning things at the Digital Media Center inside Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. We got a loaded show for you on this Bama game day and for your viewing pleasure before Alabama and Duke kick things off here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We'll have guest, feature stories, analysis, and more coming up in the next hour. So let's take a look at where we're at today. Obviously, as I said, I'm in the ATL. As I mentioned, Zach is in our WVUA 23 studios. He'll join us from time to time with interviews, analysis, and more. And Danielle Davis is standing by in the WVUA 23 Weather Center, ready to bring you the most current, up-to-date game day weather forecast. So we've got you covered back home in Tuscaloosa as well as on the road right here in Atlanta. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a jam-packed show, so let's get things started, as always, with our Bama headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama headlines.
Well, it sounds like a broken record, but yet again, there's several new faces on this Alabama coaching staff. No major changes will come about as a result. This is Nick Saban's system. But while he's in charge, new guys are bringing new ideas. 7 new coaches total joining the staff for 2019. We'll have more on the new coaching staff later on in the show. What will certainly hurt the Tide more than the new faces on the UA coaching staff is the rash of injuries that have hampered Alabama already this fall. First, it was 5-star freshman phenom running back Trey Sanders, and then both of Alabama's projected inside starters at linebacker went down. Joshua McMillan, followed by Dylan Moses just this past week. We'll have details on those injuries and how they impact this Alabama team coming up a little bit later. And finally, if you thought that January's national championship game was in the past, think again. Alabama players and coaches alike are looking to avenge their loss from 2019's championship game, but more importantly, they're looking to get back to the Alabama standard. The Bama Revenge Tour starts today. Well, Alabama will host their home opener next week at Bryant-Denny Stadium, but Atlanta is almost like a second home to the Crimson Tide, right? Heck, it may as well be called Bryant-Denny Stadium East. Alabama boasts a 13-1 record in games played in the ATL during the Nick Saban era, and the Tide is currently on a 12-game winning streak here in Georgia's capital city. Well, that record includes an unblemished 5-0 record in Chick-fil-A kickoff games, a 6-1 record in SEC championship games, a 1-0 record in the Peach Bowl, and a 1-0 record in the college football playoff. And the Tide just just roll in Atlanta. It typically rolls in its season opener, regardless of where the game is played. Under Nick Saban, Alabama is 12-0 in season openers and beats its opponents on average by more than 30 points. This year, the Duke Blue Devils stand in the Tide's way of a 13-0 record in season openers as the two teams meet for the first time since 2010. Duke is coming off a respectable 2018 season that saw them finish 8-5 in the regular season before they topped Temple in the 2018 Independence Bowl. The Blue Devils are led by Birmingham native and University of Alabama graduate David Cutcliffe, who has managed to completely change the culture in Durham and keep the Blue Devils competitive in the ACC. Cutcliffe and the Blue Devils will have to overcome the loss of quarterback Daniel Jones, who was selected 6th overall by the New York Giants in the 2019 NFL Draft. But as always, Nick Saban still has a lot of respect for the Tide's opponent.
We have an opportunity to play a team that at Duke had a very successful season last year with 8 wins. David Cutcliffe, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches in the country. Having competed against him for years when he was at Ole Miss, and also since we've been here, we played against him at Duke. They have a much better team. They've got 15 returning starters this year, 8 on defense, 4 on offense. Their offense is very efficient and effective, and obviously they had a great quarterback last year, but the quarterback they have this year actually started in 2 games and played extremely well last year. So there's lots of challenges that they present as a team.
On the other side of the coin, Duke head coach David Cutcliffe knows what his Blue Devils are up against. As I mentioned earlier, Cutcliffe is a UA graduate, and he spent plenty of time in the SEC as the offensive coordinator at Tennessee and as the head coach at Ole Miss. He has a lot of respect for the Alabama program, particularly this team in 2019.
I think they're probably the most talented team top to bottom in the country. That's what I honestly think. Along with that, they're extremely well coached. They don't have a lot of penalties. They don't bust assignments. They don't make errors. And so they do make you play their strengths. How do you do that? You take your team and you work as hard as you can starting August 2nd on what you believe your strengths are and how you have to go about developing and building those. And that's why games of this magnitude are good for your program.
Well, this will be the first time that these two teams have met since 2010. Alabama rolled on that September afternoon in Durham, defeating the Blue Devils 62-13. All-time Bama leads the series 3-1, and the Tide has won the last 3 matchups. Duke took the first game between Alabama and the Blue Devils in the 1945 Sugar Bowl, and the two didn't meet again until 1972 when Alabama won 35-12 at Legion Field in Beham. Bama then followed that up with a 30-14 victory in 2006, I should say, in Tuscaloosa. Luckily for us here in Atlanta, this game will be played inside the climate-controlled confines of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But outside, it's going to be pretty hot. And also that's the case in Alabama as well. Let's check in now with Danielle Davis inside the WVUA 23 studios in Tuscaloosa for a check on our forecast. Danielle?
Hey, Gary. Yes, perfect weather there in Atlanta for the game because the game's indoors, so I expect temperatures to be about 72 degrees there at the game. But here locally, if you want to take a look at Tuscaloosa right now, a beautiful, gorgeous blue sky here. It could be a home game this afternoon. The weather is so perfect. Yes, it's a little warmer. Temperatures in the upper 80s, 89 in Tuscaloosa right now, but hey, it is absolutely gorgeous here. And radar across the entire state, we're looking at clear, beautiful skies, not a shower, not a cloud, plenty of sunshine, and that'll be the case for your tailgating plans throughout the entire afternoon. Temperatures right now 89 in Tuscaloosa, 84 in Birmingham, and 88 over in Jasper. So your sweatcast for the day, look at that dry, comfy conditions right now as you step outdoors. And over the next several hours, we will see some muggy air move in, but overall, it's not going to be too bad this afternoon. Take those tailgate plans outside. You're not going to sweat too much. Overall, a very comfy day. So Bama versus Duke, 92 at start time here in Tuscaloosa, and by the end of the game, temperatures moving into the low 80s with plenty of sunshine here in Tuscaloosa this afternoon. That's your game forecast.
Well, thank you, Danielle. I'm certainly glad that I'm inside for this game, and I bet the players appreciate it as well, although it is a beautiful day. Well, when we come back, we're going to switch back over to you in Tuscaloosa. Zach Tigert will be joining us in studio. We'll take a look at the new coaching staff in Titletown and its impact on the 2019 version of the Crimson Tide. That story, plus later on we'll take a look back at January's national championship game loss and what it means for this year's Crimson Tide football team. All that and more when we return to Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance on WVUA 23. You stay tuned.
Let me turn this up a little bit. Say that again. Yeah. And welcome back into Crimson Tide Kickoff.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And welcome back into CTKO, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Zach Tigert, live inside the WVUA 23 studio. We'll be back out to Gary in Atlanta in a bit. But first, let's take a look at where Alabama sits in the AP Top 25 rankings. The top four, pretty straightforward. Alabama at number 2 behind the defending champ Clemson Tigers. No surprise there. At the top, 2 dogs are followed by Georgia at number 3, Oklahoma at number 4, and Ohio State at number 5. LSU, Michigan, Florida, Notre Dame, and Texas, they round out the top 10 in that order. Oregon is number 11. They're taking on Auburn later tonight, followed by Texas A&M at 12. Washington's at number 13. Utah ranked 14th in the country. Penn State at 15th. And then Auburn, UCF, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Iowa round out the top 20. As for the bottom half of the top 25, Iowa State, Syracuse, Washington State, Nebraska, and Stanford in that order to round out that preseason top 25 rankings. Well, nearly every offseason, the Alabama coaching staff is plucked apart and then reassembled. This offseason was no different as the Tide said goodbye to both their offensive and defensive coordinators in the midst of a coaching turnover. In the end, there are 7 new coaches on staff for Alabama, and it's yet to be seen how that turnover will affect the Tide in 2019. CTKO's Alessandra Pompeyron has more on this new look staff.
Zach, you're right. Out of the 12 coaches on staff, only 5 are returners. Obviously, head coach Nick Saban and head strength and conditioning coach Scott Cochran, plus 3 position coaches. But these new coaches bring a ton of talent. And unlike last year, most of these new coaches are seasoned and have been coaching for decades. Every year when the college football season ends, seniors move on, but so do Alabama assistant coaches. This year, the Crimson Tide added 7 new coaches to the staff, and head coach Nick Saban is happy with how they have adjusted to their new jobs.
I'm really pleased with the way the new coaching staff has kind of come together. We have new leadership on both sides, and those guys have done a really good job of developing relationships with the players. They're very knowledgeable, they're well organized, do a good job of leadership, and the coaching staff has fell into place very nicely.
Only 3 coaches remain from 2018. Special teams coordinator and tight ends coach Jeff Banks, cornerbacks coach Carl Scott, and inside linebackers coach Pete Golding, who was promoted to defensive coordinator. But some new coaches are familiar with the Crimson Tide, like offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Steve Sarkisian, who left Alabama for the Atlanta Falcons, then returned this season.
When this opportunity came back up from Coach Saban to come back here to Alabama, it was one that I jumped on, and I was fortunate enough to have this opportunity present itself, and looking forward to working with Coach Saban again. He's a great mentor of mine, somebody you obviously can learn a great deal from, the players, our entire coaching staff. So excited about the opportunity. It's good to get going again.
The players say they have adjusted well with their new position coaches. Offensive lineman Jedrick Will says he has learned a lot from former Falcons offensive line coach Kyle Flood.
I mean, he has really good knowledge coming from the NFL. Some different things that he teaches, like coverages and things to look out for that you don't really see beyond the offensive line. So those things help a whole bunch.
Former Virginia Tech wide receivers coach Colin Wiggins is new to Tuscaloosa, and he inherited a wealth of talent, but he still pushes his talented players like Jalen Waddle to work hard.
He's definitely big on detail and the little things. You know, he really wants you to do the little thing right. Real big on ball security, making sure that he always say the ball is the most important thing in the program.
Now, Zach, we'll see how they do in just a few hours as we're winding down to the opening kickoff. Live in the studio for Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Alessandra Pomprion.
Thank you, Alessandra. It almost seems that recruiting new assistants every year is a task taller than recruiting new players each and every year. Well, one area where Alabama does have plenty of expertise coming back is at quarterback. Number 13, junior Tua Tagovailoa out of Hawaii is back and entering his second year as the Tide's QB1. And even with the new offensive coordinator and Steve Sarkisian, Tua expects to feel comfortable. That's because he and Sark have long been connected, dating back to his high school days when Sark was in charge at USC. The Trojans were pursuing the Southpaw hard, and both coach and signal caller made an immediate connection that is still strong today.
It's been really good. I mean, yeah, I had a relationship with Coach Sark since he's been recruiting me at USC, since my sophomore year in high school. I mean, when I had the opportunity to come here, he was here too, and I mean, he ended up going and coming back. But I mean, the relationship that we had, from my sophomore year is carried over, and I mean, it's just made the transition a lot comfortable, with Coach Loxley leaving and him coming in.
So while Tua and Sark have known each other for quite some time, the two are now in a working relationship for the first time ever. And with that, there are adjustments to be made for Tua in this system compared to Mike Loxley last season and Brian Dable the year before that. Some of the pro-style concepts in place of Tua taking snaps directly under center and working more extensively off play-action passing concepts. Nick Saban was asked if this was going to be a challenge for his QB, and he says, not a chance.
Look, he's a good quarterback. He makes good decisions when he's in the gun. He makes good decisions under center. I think having a combination of those two things is probably a good thing. I think we have a little more diversity in the passing game than we had in the past, which is probably a good thing. And I certainly think we have more ways to utilize the skilled players that we have, which is probably a good thing. And I think he's very comfortable with what he's doing right now, whether it's under center or in the gun.
And one thing's for certain, the Alabama offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch yet again, no matter who is in charge. And maybe it's just the offensive lineman within me, but I'm excited about this year's front five, particularly newcomer Landon Dickerson. When we come back, details on the FSU transfer's expected role on the team when we return to Crimson Tide Kickoff presented by Alpha Insurance.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Well, welcome back to CTKO presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris, and we're back here in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We've even changed our spot a little bit. We want to keep you abreast of everything that's going on in this stadium, so we moved down to the other end zone. Well, we're just hours away from kickoff inside of this incredible facility. Now, there aren't many areas of concerns when it comes to Alabama's offense. They're loaded, and the firepower is just everywhere. But one question mark can be found at tight end. Last season, tight end was a position of strength with junior standout Irv Smith and senior captain Hell Henches taking care of business. But those guys are both gone, and Irv Smith was selected in the second round of the NFL draft and is with the Vikings, and Hell Henches is in camp with the Indianapolis Colts. The only ones remaining with game experience are Miller Forrestall and Major Tennyson, and Tennyson hasn't played much. And beyond that, really nobody's played hardly at all. According to the first depth chart released last Monday, behind those two are former walk-on Giles Amos and converted outside linebacker Cameron Latou. And it's Giles Amos that may be the most intriguing option of them all based off his nickname alone.
It was during fourth quarter during conditioning, and I was running around a cone or something, and all of a sudden I hear, "Pick it up, Trailer Park Jesus." And I'm thinking, Trailer Park Jesus, that's new. But it just kind of stuck, and now everybody just kind of goes with it, so I kind of like it. No, it doesn't offend me at all. I actually take it as a compliment. Everybody says that I remind them of one of the Trailer Park Boys, and I've never really seen the show, but they seem like a good group of guys, so I kind of go along with it.
Maybe his nickname alone should be worth a scholarship, but it was just a few weeks ago that he earned one. The long-haired Perry, Georgia native was listed as the team's third tight end on the depth chart. He gets that scholarship for his senior season, and rightfully he can't wait for this opportunity that him and his teammates are equally excited for, and they're excited and pumped up for him.
Honestly, it's been really neat. It's kind of just like living out of the dream. Honestly, I never thought I'd be up here talking to you guys, so that's really neat. And, you know, it's something that a lot of people don't understand, but kind of when you sign up for the walk-up deal, you sign into something bigger than yourself. So you kind of buy into the team and buy out of yourself, and there's something rewarding in that as well. And so I think really it's paid off, and I'm honestly blessed to be in the situation I am, and hopefully I can help my team out on Saturday.
Couldn't be happier for a guy. He came in my freshman year with me, and I've gotten to be great friends with him. And to see him receive a scholarship, I mean, that meant the world to everybody in that room. It was awesome.
And, of course, those tight ends line up to next to a powerful offensive line that was only bolstered during the offseason. Alabama recruited offensive linemen well and also added graduate transfer Landon Dickerson from the Florida State Seminoles. Alabama's newest player is hard to miss on the practice field. Originally from South Caldwell High School in North Carolina, Dickerson was a five-star recruit coming out of high school, and Alabama recruited him then. He went to Florida State. At 6'6" and 308 pounds, the offensive guard and center is literally a big addition to the Tide roster. Not only have reporters been impressed by the mammoth lineman, but his teammates have taken notice too. Senior Matt Womack is already a favorite of his new teammate.
I love Landon. He's a great guy. He, as soon as he came in, I mean, he was acting like himself. I mean, I met him a couple of times before he actually came here, but he's a great guy. He's a great player. I watched him yesterday, pads on. He was doing some really great stuff, and so I'm excited to see what he's going to do in the future.
I should have said Womack is a fan of his new teammate, and they're both, I think, favorites among Alabama fans. And the Crimson Tide offensive line will be forced to reckon with a lot this season. They are changing coaches. Brent Key has moved on to Georgia Tech, and they've got a new guy. Kyle Flood comes over from the Atlanta Falcons. He brings in a wealth of experience from both the NFL and college, and he has worked directly with Steve Sarkisian, the new offensive coordinator in the ATL with the Falcons for the last 2 seasons. That consistency has helped the entire unit develop, and Matt Womack, again, says this year's O-line is as strong as it's ever been.
Definitely want to establish a powerful run game, and I mean, if defense watches us coming off the ball, hitting people, then it's going to have them thinking about that before they go into a game. So we really want for defenses to see how powerful we are. I mean, plus we're trying to strive to be the best O-line, so the only way to be the best O-line is to do what the best O-line do.
And it'll be a lot of fun watching Landon and Womack and those guys block this afternoon. And it'll be fun to watch who they're blocking for. It will once again be running back by committee for the Crimson Tide. After the departures of Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs to the NFL, it's not just next man up, it's next men up for the Tide in terms of the running backs. After an unfortunate setback due to losing highly touted freshman Trey Sanders, Alabama will be led by a pair of juniors, Najee Harris and Brian Robinson. But you can expect contributions from the likes of redshirt sophomore Jerome Ford and true freshman Keelan Robinson as well. For what the backfield likes in terms of experience, it certainly makes up for in raw talent. And as Brian Robinson and Najee Harris explain, each back brings a little something different to the table.
I feel like we all as a group should feel ownership because it's not just one person really who's going to be doing most of the work. So I feel like everybody should have in their mind that when it's my time to go, I got to be ready. So never do I feel like it's just me, and nobody in the room feels like that either.
We're all pretty much hard-nosed runners, elusive, got good agility, smart, instinctive, and I wouldn't really say that we're different when it comes to comparison. We got a lot of similarities, and we just have different ways we like to do things.
And speaking of running, you can bet that the memories of January's national title game disaster have been running through the minds of every Alabama fan, coach, and especially every Alabama player. 44-16. Just those numbers alone can inflict pain and provoke an emotional response. But through the sting of that loss in Santa Clara, California, the Crimson Tide learned some tough lessons. CTKO's Julia Daniels explains.
Tua looking to throw and first down. Launches it for Judy, but it's picked off. The second interception. This is Trayvon Mullen.
After a devastating 44-16 loss to Clemson in January's national championship game, the Alabama football team is using the defeat as a tool to push themselves as the 2019 college football season approaches.
But we're looking forward and trying to take the lessons that we learned from that game, implement those as lessons for our players in the future so that they have a better chance to be successful.
As the Tide heads into the season, they'll certainly be looking for redemption. However, junior quarterback Tua Tagovailoa says a loss like this isn't necessarily a bad thing.
When you win, it's a great feeling, but then when you lose, it isn't a great feeling. And I think it was good that we lost because what can you learn if you keep winning? You can't learn as much, and so being that we lost, I think it was a good experience for our team entirely because a lot of us have come back, and it's something that you don't take for granted now, winning isn't something that you should take for granted.
Senior Raekwon Davis says that as the season starts, he wants the team to have the same mindset, winning.
We just trying to get everybody on the same page of winning, just playing good football, winning football. Just everybody just had the same standard and everybody just buying in. That's it.
The Tide certainly did not take the offseason for granted. Trayvon Diggs says that Coach Saban doesn't have to remind them of their substantial loss to the Tigers.
We know in our heads that, what happened in the Clemson game, but only thing we can do is just learn from it, fix our mistakes and get past it.
For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Julia Daniels.
Thank you. Well, only time will tell if those lessons hold true, and the journey to redemption starts this afternoon against another ACC team. Well, don't go anywhere. CTKO is far from over. When we return, Shane Dorrell of the University of Alabama Strategic Communications Department joins Zach Tigert in studio to discuss the new UA Game Day radio station and app and how it will make your Tuscaloosa game day experience a breeze. Plus, we've all heard that the injury bug was out during fall camp. We'll have the story coming up when we return to Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. We're back to Tuscaloosa and Atlanta right after this timeout.
My jeans.
Yeah? Could have gotten comfy.
I thought about wearing my Good.
UA Game Day app.
So UA Game Day app.
2 minutes. Okay. 2 minutes.
The station is not just a game day station, although we are going to use it for game day.
Okay. Mic check, 1, 2, 3. Can you do mic check?
Mic check, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We'll try to keep it around 1:45, 2 minutes. Okay, that's when I'll start to wrap.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And welcome back into CTKO. I'm Zach Taggart, live inside the WVUA 23 studios inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. And I'm joined now by Shane Dorrell of the University of Alabama Strategic Communications Department. Thanks for coming on, Shane. Let's just talk about this new radio station that the university is working with, 92.5 FM, as well as the UA Game Day Safety app, and what it means for game day here on campus.
So Zach, 92.5 FM signed on in April of this year. We got to use it for A-Day, but we're really excited about this home football season because as fans come to Tuscaloosa, they will be able to turn to 92.5 on their FM dial. They'll be able to hear pre- and post-game traffic updates. They'll be able to learn about all the events happening on campus on game day. Plus, we're going to give them some information about our coaches, our players. It's just going to be a great way to get information about everything game day as you come to Tuscaloosa.
All about reaching the masses. So if I'm coming to town for a home game here inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, and I'm from out of town, what do I need to do on my way into the game?
Right, so as you're driving on the interstate or one of the highways to get to town, as you're getting close to Tuscaloosa, number one, turn your radio to 92.5 FM. You can also hear the station, stream it through our UA Game Day app and also through our UA Safety app. And those are two great apps that you can get for free in your app store that will really help you on game day.
All right. To keep your game day a breeze, it's going to help get everybody in and out. And as you mentioned, it's going to help things go more smoothly, which is going to help things be safer here on campus.
Exactly.
So, absolutely. If you are coming to town next week for the UA's home opener, download those apps, Android and iPhone.
That's
correct?
right, exactly.
And tune in to 92.5 FM on your way in. Thank you, Shane, for coming by.
Thanks, Zach.
We're going to get the chance to try out those new safety apps next Saturday when the Tide hosts their home opener against New Mexico State. When we come back to CTKO, we will continue right along. We'll have the story on who may emerge as the strongest leader on the 2019 Crimson Tide. That story and much more next when Crimson Tide Kickoff returns.
Maybe it's right there. Is that it? No, right here. Hi. I'm holding my mics, I promise. My mic's on.
Turn your mic check. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2. Thanks, Gary. Alabama will have some new faces on the field today.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
When I first went out there, Carney Leslie, who I mentioned earlier, who was Coach Bryant's right-hand man, he told me what to do. Well, I went about 6 or 7 years and no mention of money was ever made and none was ever forthcoming. But after about 10 years, Carney came to me one day and said, the NCAA said if you were on a practice field in advisory consulting capacity, you had to be compensated. I can only tell you, I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. He said from now on practice will be $10. And I can only say, as the Lord is my witness, I thought he meant I had to pay $10. I thought, I've got $5. Can I work half in practice? That's the honest to goodness truth.
That gentleman has become an Alabama football icon. Eddie Conyers, the longtime Alabama practice official. He'll be sharing all those great stories with us all season long, right here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. And on that note, welcome back to CTKO here on WVUA 23, proudly presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris, live in Atlanta. We're just a few hours away from kicking off the 2019 season here in the ATL with the Chick-fil-A kickoff game between the Crimson Tide and the Duke Blue Devils. Unfortunately for Alabama, they'll take the field with some key contributors sidelined with significant injuries. CTKO's Rhea Thornton is standing by in Tuscaloosa with a look at who's injured and how those injuries will affect Alabama's football team. Rhea?
Thanks, Gary. Alabama will have some new faces on the field today as many of the Tide starters have been bit by a certain bug roaming through the Tide's roster.
The Alabama roster began to dwindle as the season opener inched closer and closer. The injury bug first struck in week 1 of fall camp when freshman running back Trey Sanders and senior linebacker Josh McMillan went down with injuries.
When Josh went down, it was like, we lost like someone that, had a lot of knowledge within the defense. So it was like I had to take that full responsibility as far as like, the mental aspect of it and use what I got and use what I know to be able to lead the guys and for the defense. I try and, be more so of even better leader than I was before, because I know they needed most.
But the injury bug struck again, sinking its teeth into Dylan Moses, and unfortunately for him and the Alabama defense, it is now unlikely that Moses will get the chance to be that leader this year. But the season must go on.
We love Dylan. He had a great camp. He was a great leader. He was a good signal caller on defense. I think it's a character check for Dylan in terms of the support that we want to give him and the adversity that he has to overcome. But it's also a character check for everybody on our team to be able to keep the faith, to respond to adversity the way they need to accept the challenge, and to rise above the challenge, support each other, support the young players that are going to have to play, and just kind of go from there. I mean, that's the only choice we have.
Although the Tide needs to continue forward with the players it has, head coach Nick Saban makes sure to keep the injured Bama athletes in the loop.
We have great support staff here. We have a great medical staff. They do a tremendous job keeping them involved in terms of what they do relative to rehab. We still like for guys to be involved in meetings if they can be to help support the other players. So we're doing everything we can to stay in communication with them, to encourage them, to support them, teammates, coaches, everybody in the organization.
Now, these injuries have all been labeled indefinite, so it is unsure if and when the players will be able to return to the field. So as always, it's next man up for the Crimson Tide. We'll find out how the replacement for the Tide's injured players fare later this afternoon. Live in Tuscaloosa, I'm Rhea Thornton. Back to Gary in Atlanta.
Well, thank you, Rhea. There's no doubt that those injuries will impact this Alabama football team, but the good news is that the replacements are very able-bodied indeed. One of those vacant inside linebacker spots will be filled by Christian Harris, a true freshman out of Baton Rouge who is a freak athletically. His athleticism, in fact, is second to none. He'll likely be joined by fellow freshman Shane Lee at the other inside linebacker spot. Both players were outstanding in high school and will need to step up their game in a big way, obviously, this afternoon. But when Nick Saban speaks so highly of young players, it's a big-time confidence boost. And he gave that vote of confidence on Wednesday evening, even assigning play-calling duties to whichever freshman is lined up at the Mike linebacker spot this afternoon. Probably Shane Lee.
Whoever's playing Mike linebacker. I mean, we're going to have two freshmen playing as it is right now, so you know, that's whoever's playing Mike linebacker. So that's and you know, we got to work with them on it. I mean, they've been calling the defenses, they've been getting the signals with the twos. All right, now they're going to have to move up and be able to get to communication with the ones.
All right, we are going to hear now from Julia Westerman, who has more on Alabama's inexperience, but this team has good leadership. This year's Alabama squad is poised to have plenty of leaders. Seniors and underclassmen alike will have leadership roles this year, and fall camp provided an opportunity for those roles to be developed. Here's CTKO's Julia Westerman with more on Alabama's new leadership.
With the new season on the horizon, Alabama is looking to avenge last season's national championship loss in every game the team plays. After losing some of last year's key contributors, those who returned have had to step into the leadership positions left behind. This may be a new experience for some, but not for all.
You know, it's not really anything different for me. Feel like I've been a leader, I've been leading, you know, but just making sure those guys are kind of staying focused, not getting sidetracked, not letting anything distract them, and just making sure that they get the plays down.
Some newcomers are getting immediately forced into leadership roles. With absences due to injuries to veterans like Dylan Moses, true freshmen Christian Harris and Shane Lee will get to start with the Alabama defense their first game.
But it's also a character check for everybody on our team to be able to keep the faith, to respond to adversity the way they need to accept the challenge, and to rise above the challenge, support each other, support the young players that are going to have to play, and just kind of go from there.
If there's anyone who knows how to jump right in, it's quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. With Jalen Hurts now at Oklahoma, the junior has full range of the offense and the team overall.
Well, I feel like I have a lot more control, you know, around everything now. I guess because, you know, I didn't want to overstep boundaries last year, you know, because of the amount of respect that I had for Jalen and, you know, the amount of respect that everyone had for him as well.
Other members of the Crimson Tide have taken notice of Tua's increased leadership.
He's being just a leader like always, but I mean, he's starting to open up and be a little more vocal, you know, let us know things and how he feels about us, you know, and just communicating. That's the biggest thing, communicating with us, communicating with the running backs. And that's just making us, you know, become closer and more as one.
Reporting for Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Julia Westerman.
Thank you, Julia. CTKO, presented by Alpha Insurance, will return right after this timeout.
Hi. You bet.
Okay. Camera 1. Okay. Can you do a mic check? Just talk.
Yep.
Mic
Check, check,
1, 2.
check, check. Mic check. 1, 2.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And welcome back into CTKO. I'm Zach Taggart, live in Tuscaloosa inside the WVUA 23 studios. Well, back in late April, the Alabama swimming and diving program was handed over to a new leader following the retirement of Dennis Pursley. Coley Stickles is that new leader, and the new head coach joins me now live in studio. Coach, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I just got to ask, why Alabama? 2 years as an assistant coach at Indiana, your first head coaching gig at the collegiate level here. What about the SEC and this program in particular brought you to Tuscaloosa?
Well, the tradition of winning at Alabama is what brought me here in every sport, really, obviously with football, but with softball and golf and everything. I knew that a national championship is possible here in swimming, and that's kind of what led me here.
Coach Pursley left the program in pretty good shape. You took over a really strong, healthy swimming and diving program. But what are the expectations going into 2019 with such a talented roster up and down?
Yeah, on the men's side, we're just looking to move up, particularly within the NCAA. To crack the top 5 is difficult, but we feel like we have a good shot at doing that. We'll rely a little bit more on depth this year. And then on the women's side, we need to break into the top 20 and move up in the SEC.
And, today marked the first official practice date. You were out in the pool this morning, beautiful brand new pool. We'll get to that Aquatic Center here in a second. But, how good did it feel to get out there for the first official practice of the 2019 season with your team all together? What was that moment like?
It was fantastic. We actually did something a little different today. We split up the men and the women. The women went first for the first 2 hours, and then the men went after. And then we got kind of a whole team setting together, and we got them really pumped, and we put on some music and enjoyed the outdoor weather, and it was fantastic.
So going back to your experience, obviously big program in Indiana, Big Ten school, how much did that experience being in such a big Power 5 conference, big-time school in Indiana prepare you for where you're at today?
Well, quite a bit. I mean, just in terms of recruiting and in terms of winning at a high level, we won 3 Big Ten titles when I was there. And we actually led NCAAs on the med side for most of the meet until the last day in 2018. And we ended up 3rd, but we saw what it took to win a national title, and so that experience there was invaluable.
And finally, that new Aquatic Center, the indoor pool under construction currently, the outdoor pool looks beautiful. It's ready to go. What does it mean to you to know that the administration here fully supports your program?
Well, Greg Byrne and the administration here have been nothing short of supportive, particularly with our new facility. To me, it's one of the best in the country, if not the best. I think we can compete on a national scale, and it means the world. And it's one of the reasons I'm here, is that the support of swimming couldn't be on a larger scale.
Coach Coley Stickles, the newest head coach here in Tuscaloosa. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
When we come back, we'll hear from the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl president and CEO, Mr. Gary Stoken. He is caught up with our Gary Harris. CTKO, presented by Alpha Insurance. We'll be right back after this.
We're okay for now.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff here on WVUA 23. I'm with the president and CEO of the Peach Bowl, and of course, in charge of the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, Gary Stokin is with us. Now, it's Friday afternoon as we record this, and it's a little bit warm, but it's beautiful, and it's going to be a great, great game on Saturday, Gary. And I know this was your vision when it started, to not just have one game, but to have this thing stand the test of time, and it certainly has.
Well, it really has, and a lot of that credit goes to Nick Saban in Alabama. They've been fantastic. The fans have traveled over here, and without the fans here, you can't make this thing work financially. So we appreciate Nick, we appreciate Bill Battle before him, and Mal Moore, and now Greg Byrne for making their commitments. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to a sellout and a great way to kick off college football.
This beautiful Mercedes-Benz Stadium is behind us. It's gorgeous, and we were talking on my radio show earlier this week about how we both love the Georgia Dome, but this is progress, and one big change this year is the fanfare is going to be outside.
Yeah, we're going to move everything outside. It's supposed to be 86 and beautiful tomorrow, so the team walks will actually happen right behind us in Home Depot backyard. Alabama will go in and Duke will go in through the crowds, and it's a great way to really bring some fun and for the fans, but also for the players to get them ready. The bands will be out there and the cheerleaders, so it'll be a great atmosphere to start the game.
It really will. Great way to start the season. You referenced this. Alabama has already built up a great tradition with this game since Nick Saban arrived going back to 2008. Certainly haven't played in it every year, although it kind of seems that way, but it has been a win-win for the University of Alabama and for the Chick-fil-A kickoff game.
Well, it really has. The fans win because they can get tickets, and if they don't come, they can watch a great game on TV. The team wins because their preparation's off season, and now once you have live game film, helps you prepare for the season. And then thirdly, the AD and the athletic department wins because it's a pretty good payout financially as well.
Now, Alabama's a huge favorite in the game, but as we know, Alabama's had some injuries, unfortunately. There's talk of some players being suspended in the first half of this game. And this is a Duke team with a great head coach in David Cutcliffe, 15 returning starters that won 8 games a year ago. I know you're hoping for a competitive game, and it could very well turn out to be more competitive than a lot of people are thinking.
Well, really, in the first half, I think it will be, and then the second half is going to be, can Duke hang with Alabama's depth and athleticism? But, you know, David Cutcliffe has a great coaching pedigree. He's got 15 starters, as you said, back, and I think we're in for a very competitive game.
We talked about this on my radio show as well. The city of Atlanta has really embraced this game. It's just been great for the teams and the fans of those teams, but also for the city.
Well, college football is very, very important to the city of Atlanta. This year, 3 of the top 5 conventions in the 4th largest convention town in the United States, Atlanta, Georgia, are going to be college football games. That's how much college football means to Atlanta.
Well, that's impressive to say the least. And TV-wise, the ratings have been a hit as well.
Yeah, they really have. The viewership's great. We're going to have another sellout. And then at the end of the year, we're going to sell out the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. We already announced that. And to have the semifinal, and I know that Nick and Alabama and the fans are hoping to be here in early December with the SEC Championship, and then back at the end of December, December 28th for the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl CFP semifinal game.
Yeah, Alabama wants the Atlanta trifecta. This game, as you said, the SEC Championship game, then the college football playoff semifinal. We know this too, that college football, for all the talk of what's wrong with it, once you get to the season and you see this sport up close, there's still a lot of great things about college football, both in terms of the games themselves and the pageantry. I don't think that is broken at all, do you?
Well, it's great to celebrate the 150th celebration of college football here this year. And you think of all the kids that probably would have never got their college education if it weren't for the opportunity to get a scholarship. And now, as a launching board to play potentially in the NFL. But let's remember, only 1% of these kids are going to play in the NFL. So we all got to pick up a lunch pail. I played basketball at North Carolina State. You got to get a job, and the NFL stands for not for long. The average lifespan is 2.5 years. At 26, even if you play 2.5, 3 years, you're still going to have to work the rest of your life. So, you know, college football has so many great things, let alone the teamwork, dealing with adversity, et cetera, et cetera. So Nick Saban does as good as anybody's job in preparing his kids for the future, and that's what coaching is all about.
And final 30 seconds, I know Chick-fil-A's been busy with the chicken sandwich wars on Twitter, but what a great corporate sponsor Chick-fil-A has been.
We're very blessed. We've been good for them. They've been great for us. and they continue to support college football. And so we've just negotiated a new contract with them, and so we're very, very blessed to have them as a partner.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary. Good to be with you.
Gary Stoken with us here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. We'll be back after this.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would have worked.
That would have been funny, but not really.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Evening kickoffs are going to be fun this season at Bryant-Denny Stadium. The facility's been equipped with new LED lights, so say goodbye to the yellowish glow of old. In addition to the standard bright white lights, these new lights will change colors to light crimson. Athletics Director Greg Byrne tweeted out pictures of the new LED lights added to the stadium and even made the suggestion of turning the lights to crimson when the Tide scores a touchdown. I like the sound of that. I can't wait to see those lights. Well, that's going to do it for me here on the ground in Atlanta. For photographer Keith Dobbins, I'm Gary Harris. Let's send it back to the studio to wrap things up with Zach and Danielle.
Zach, it is absolutely gorgeous here in Tuscaloosa today.
It is, and a little warm probably, but
Yes.
inside, as you mentioned, inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Inside the stadium there in Atlanta, but overall it is a beautiful afternoon here in Tuscaloosa. Looking at the Walk of Champions right now, it should be game day here. It is so gorgeous, and it's hot, but it's not that humid hot. So temperatures right now, we are at 89 degrees here in Tuscaloosa, 84 in Birmingham, and 91 up in Jasper. Your game forecast for the day today here in Tuscaloosa at kickoff. Temperatures going to be in the low 90s, mostly sunny skies for the entire afternoon today. And by the end of the game, we are still in the upper 80s, but like I said, it's not going to be that humid heat that we've been experiencing this past several weeks, so it's pretty nice out.
That's good to hear. Beautiful game day forecast, and that's going to do it for us this afternoon on Crimson Tide Kickoff. Remember, you can catch a replay of this program online. For Gary Harris and Keith Dobbins in Atlanta, and for Danielle Davis and all of us here at the studios, I'm Zach Tigert. Thanks for watching. Happy game day, and roll Tide.